live on YouTube and StreamYard.
Hello, viewers. It's us at Gay USA again. Yes, we're back.
We're back.
With more great news from around the world.
Well, some positive news. Hang in there, folks.
Yeah, don't give up now. It's only been a month.
Feels like 5 years.
At least. So what's 4 years going to feel like? You know, those people who were saying, well, let him try for a third term. We'll have him against Obama. No, because the way they've written the change to the Constitution, he would be the only one eligible to run again.
He and Grover Cleveland.
Yes, but Grover is not available.
Well, yeah.
Maybe Grover the Muppet, but not Grover Cleveland.
We have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Humm.
And I'm Ann Northrop, and sooner or later we'll show up on the screen.
What's going on?
To our director.
Oh,
there we are.
How are you?
Say your intro again.
I'm Andy Humm.
I'm Ann Northrop.
In the news this week, well, it's come to the Stonewall. The National Park Service has erased transgender and queer people from the Stonewall National Monument website. We're fighting back.
You'd think they have better things to do.
Oh,
but
no.
there is nothing
no.
to say. You know, Michael Petrellis predicted this months ago, that they were going to go after this.
Of course.
But demonstrations against the Trump-Musk dictatorship from coast to coast on President's Day as they continue to undermine civil rights, LGBTQ rights, public health, social security, aviation safety, nuclear safety, and the privacy of your finances.
And then there's the Kennedy Center under Trump. They canceled a World Pride concert that was scheduled for the spring and a performance of the Gay Men's Chorus of DC. And protests have ensued over that hostile takeover.
The Trump Education Department hates women in sports, not just trans women.
I think it's all about hating women, basically.
That's a lot of it.
Utah has banned pride flags in schools, but is going to allow Nazi and Confederate flags. We will explain.
We will, although whatever. The gruesome torture and murder of trans man Sam Nordquist, 24 years old in upstate New York, has caught the attention of the media. 5 monstrous people have been arrested.
The killer of legendary trans performer Lorena Extravaganza in 2012 has finally been apprehended.
More same-sex harassment allegations against the right-wing leader Matt Schlapp, just as CPAC is about to open, which makes me wonder about the story, but we'll discuss that too.
A horrible story out of South Africa. Openly gay imam Mushin Hendricks was assassinated there.
Yeah, another horrible story. Vice President Vance met with German fascists and told European leaders to embrace their far-right political parties.
Now that we're the allies of the Russian Putin regime.
Right.
And then ACT UP stalwart Jerry Wells, a co-founder of 3 major organizations in the community, has died at the age of 70.
What a hero she was.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we start at the Stonewall, where in compliance, they say, with the Trump executive orders, they have erased from their website references to transgender and queer people. So now we're just LGB. I mean, so it's grotesque. And I have to say, there was a huge protest down there, huge protest. I think they had about 500 people down there. Show the next slide. A big protest about this. All the public officials turn out. I think it's time. And then people have changed the sign of the national parks. So go back. You're going too fast. Please. There should be should have a slide there of the protest that was down there of the people.
Hundreds of people.
Yeah, there were hundreds of people there. But then people changed the sign of the Park Service there to put the word transgender, Stonewall National Transgender Monument. So here's the thing. There's the protest. Lori Arbiter making all those signs. Arbiter, sorry. And so making it a national monument, put it under federal control. This is turning out to be a disaster for a lot of people. Receiving federal funds is turning out to be a disaster for universities. Oh, they got all this research money. Hospitals. All these places are now saying, "Oh, well, we have to comply with the dictator." So that's the problem. I would get rid of it. I would get rid of federal designation. It's our space. We can't have, it being defined by a fascist regime.
For that, of course, but getting federal money out of schools and hospitals and other things like that, the states don't have the money. So what you got to do then is cut back on federal taxation, give the money back to the states, and then let them decide. But then you have 50 different systems.
Well, you already have that.
Well, Trump would like nothing better than for all of this to be pushed back to the states. That's what he's after. He wants to get rid of all federal.
Because the federal treasury is his money now. And Elon's money. It's awful.
Yeah.
So our friends at Rise and Resist made up they also have a new name for Trump Tower. We have that picture, maybe. They're calling it Trans Tower now.
Yeah, this is their photoshopping done very professionally, and it would be nice if that sign actually were on that building. Maybe we'll have to work on that.
And then in terms of, national monuments, National Register of Historic Places, they've added the site of the San Francisco address that was once the site of the pre-Stonewall transgender uprising at Compton's Cafeteria. So there it is. There's Compton's Cafeteria is not there anymore, but they have made the site.
Well, in August of 1966, the trans people and drag queens who habituated Compton's Cafeteria, it was a hangout place.
24-hour hangout place.
Yes, and they had not the greatest relationship with the cops. And there was an incident which provoked a riot. And the cops were trying to arrest a particular drag queen who threw a cup of coffee at them, and that led them to just burst out at a riot.
The windows were shattered, a police car destroyed.
And this was all protesting police harassment, which of course was the issue at Stonewall too, and is the issue to this day in so many places.
Yet, okay. But all right, so we do always like to give you some good news. A federal judge has blocked Trump's order targeting medical care for transgender youth. That's Judge Brendan Herson in Maryland, appointed by Biden in 2023.
Well, should we talk about the D.C. judge?
Well, but this is a nationwide restraining order about this trans care stuff. That's very important. And of course, we await the Supreme Court's decision, which will be monumental, about whether these bans on trans care are constitutional. And that would be a tremendous win, but I'm not going to count on it.
No. But all of these sins of the Trump administration are now being adjudicated by dozens of lawsuits that have been filed at these courts. And one of them is in the D.C. federal court about the ban on trans military members, because they want to forbid any more trans people to enlist, and they want to stop all trans care in the military, which will essentially force people out of the military.
So another Biden appointee, Judge Anna Reyes, there in that court, really raked them over the Trump lawyers over the coals. The order, she said, calls an entire category of people, the trans people in the military, dishonest, dishonorable, undisciplined, immodest, lacking in integrity. She goes on and on and on. And she said, how does that not express animus, which is not allowed? And the attorney said, well, not in any constitutional. She said, well, in a common sense way. This is a policy from the President of the United States affecting thousands of people. How is, and then the attorney says, well, Judge, I don't have an answer for you.
Well,
She says, you do have an answer. You just don't want to give it. Now, this is a lesbian judge. She says, people can make solid arguments about why some trans people shouldn't be in the military, but you're not doing that. And you're just calling them all liars. And so what if I said every lawyer here from the University of Virginia is a liar? You know, would that be animus? She was terrific.
it was really wonderful to read her arguments because
And I think she's going to rule in our favor.
I think so too. But she's a district court judge, and it will be appealed upward because we went over this when the Trump administration first issued this order. They are not saying, you know, we can't handle the medical needs of trans people in the military because a lot of people in the military have medical needs. So they know they can't get away with that. They're saying they are violating Trump's executive fiat that there are only men and women born biologically. And so therefore they're calling trans people liars.
And I keep saying this, you know, if there's only men and women, then there are no trans people. So who are you throwing out?
Non-binary people would be the only people who didn't fit that definition.
Well,
anyway.
And then there's the National
Wait,
Endowment.
I just want to
Sure.
quote a little of her language again. She called it pure animus, frankly ridiculous, and demeaning.
Yeah, she really let them have it.
Yeah.
The National Endowment for the Arts recipients must now comply with all Trump executive orders, with these heinous orders, which, get rid of diversity or anything. I mean, what can you possibly create? Who would want that money at this point?
Well, over 400 artists and professors, et cetera, signed a letter of complaint to the NEA about this and said this is insane. Again, it's the issue of maybe we shouldn't be taking grants from the
Right.
federal government if they're going to put these kinds of restrictions on them. But a news report I read pointed out poignantly that Holly Hughes is on the list of signatories. She, of course, is one of the NEA 4 decades ago whose work was rejected and censored because of its provocative nature. And now she is caught up in this
The
again.
Congress has always gone after PBS for having, LGBTQ shows on race, all these kinds of things.
Well, they're going after him again.
Yes.
They want to defund PBS and NPR and all of that.
But Kansas Democratic Governor Laura Kelly tried to bail us out. She vetoed a bill banning gender-affirming care. There she is. And her state's Republican legislature overrode her.
Which is unusual because she has vetoed previous discriminatory bills and they have not been able to override her. So they're really on board with Trump on this one.
Yeah.
I'm particularly taken by the Missouri Attorney General, who is only beaten by Ken Paxton in Texas for heinous operations, and maybe not. They may be tied. The Attorney General of Missouri is now suing Starbucks because they have too many women and people of color working there. So obviously, per him, they are discriminating against white men.
That's called disparate impact in civil rights law. But of course, the administration now does not defend anybody's civil rights except for white Christians.
He's also claiming that the women and people of color are less competent than white men, and therefore this discrimination is illegal and inappropriate.
And yet people of color in small numbers still vote for people like this.
He is also sued to support the return of conversion therapy in Missouri, which was banned by
that's
law.
a nationwide thing.
Yeah.
They want to bring that back. And you know what? Let them. We have lots of laws against conversion therapy now, and they may invalidate them all. But we just have to keep educating people
Yes.
that it's a terrible thing, and don't listen to these quacks.
Our new Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Scott Turner, who wasn't he a pastor? I don't know. Anyway, he has canceled the non-discrimination rules for gender identity in federally funded housing. He says we have to get the government out of the way of what the Lord created.
That's insane. That's insane. What language?
Let that sink in.
But let's high praise to the 2 New Hampshire teenagers who filed suit against Trump's executive order banning trans student athletes. They won their cases before in the state, and now they're doing it federally. It's Parker Tyrrell, 15, and Iris Turmel, 16 years old. They're standing up. So we're all going to have to do this.
Well, next who has to do it is NASA employees, because they have been told they have to get rid of any pride symbols in their offices. If you have a little pride flag at your desk, or maybe a picture of your same-sex loved one.
Excuse me, what happened to free speech? This is going to be the free speech administration.
Well, that is what is so crazy and so disgusting and so infuriating, is they are the world's biggest hypocrites. This is what they are doing in every venue. They're going in, they're telling people what they can say, what they can think, while claiming to be free speech advocates.
So we're not taking this sitting down. And I have to thank the Trump administration for getting me off my butt and out there walking a lot this week. Demonstrations from coast to coast versus dictatorship. We have a couple of picks from the Rise and Resist action in New York. Which thousands of people. I would say at least 10,000 people in New York, starting in Union Square, marching in the freezing cold down to Washington Square. And, people are ventilating about how much they're angry about Trump.
I think you mean venting.
No, right, venting. Correct. Thank you for the correction.
You're welcome.
About that. I do have to say, I didn't see very many signs of what we're for at this point. Now, maybe that we're not there yet, but we have to come up. And
Thousands of people.
This is what M. Gesson wrote about in the Times. All their stuff is terrible, and we're against it all. But we have to come up with a platform that we can sell to everybody else and say, this is our vision for America. It's an alternate vision, and I think you might like it.
Footnote: Andy and I did not go to this demonstration together, and yet we ran into each other.
We did. Don't have a picture. I have a nice picture of Ann. I put
Nice.
on my Facebook page.
It was acceptable. I don't often find those pictures.
I should have asked before I posted it.
It's okay. But in a crowd of 10,000 people, we ran into each other.
But in Alabama, several hundred people gathered outside the State House partly because they were protesting Governor Ivey, the closeted governor of Alabama, who just did another signed legislation saying there are only 2 sexes in Alabama. And there was a huge demonstration in Washington. I mean, these were in state. We have the Washington picture. These were in state capitals across the country, but in Washington as well. Everybody got out, and we're going to have to get out a lot more.
Oh, a lot. I guess we should be happy that in this weather, so many people got out. So many people were angry. It will increase as the weather improves.
It shows moral force when you get out in bad weather and you demonstrate. There they are in Washington outside the Capitol building.
Well, my nominee for showing the most moral force this week is Representative Robert Garcia of California, who's been, out gay, tremendously outspoken from the moment he entered Congress, former mayor of Long Beach, California. So
a little warning, it's getting a little more vulgar out there.
Well, you may remember that a year or two ago, Marjorie Taylor Greene decided to show on the floor of Congress an explicit picture of Hunter Biden's genitals.
I averted my eyes.
I did not even call up the picture, but that's what it was. And it was the dick pic heard around the world. So Robert Garcia this week showed this as a dick pic in a congressional hearing.
Because the biggest dick in the world is
Elon Musk
is the richest man in the world.
In white tie and tails. Thank you, Robert Garcia, for saying he was going to show a dick pic and put up this picture of Elon Musk. Yay to you. All right.
So,
they're trying to
Nancy Mace introduced a motion to censure him because he apparently gave some Garcia because he gave some sort of an interview where he talked about we have to use weapons to fight back. What he meant was
yes,
the arsenal of our
yes,
tactics.
Exactly. So she accused him of violence.
And there's another, as long as we're on Dick's, there's another Conception Begins at Erection Act, and it's in Ohio. It is now going to be illegal to discharge semen or genetic material without intent to fertilize an embryo. All these are satires.
Unless you're gay.
Yeah, oh, that's true. It is specifically aimed at men having straight sex without protection and without intent to have a baby.
The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the child of Senator Elizabeth Warren, which has done a great job of recouping billions of dollars from fraudulent or mismanaged funds, which is supposedly what the Trump administration wants. But no, they have pulled down hundreds of videos explaining how to work with them. They are engaging in mass firings. They have been temporarily blocked, but these things are going to go back and forth.
Representative Mark Takano from California, he's the chair of the Congressional Equality Caucus. He's calling on the EEOC chairs to resign over the fact that they won't enforce the law anymore around protecting people on the basis of gender identity, which is based on a Supreme Court decision in employment.
That was the EEOC thing
Yes.
you just talked. And meanwhile, one of Musk's little teenage helpers, who he's sending into all these agencies, has been revealed to run websites linking to pedophilia, rape, and racism. He's been fired.
Oh, he has been fired.
I believe so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Wait a minute. Was he brought back? Someone was brought back.
He was just a racist.
Yeah.
And he was brought back by J.D. Vance. The guy had insulted Indians, and he's married to a South Asian, Vance, but he stood up for this kid. And we had a headline about how Trump hates women's sports. Now, they claim to be protecting women with these, anti-transgender things in sports, but the education department is now winding back guidance from the Biden administration that says schools must equitably distribute image and likeness payments between male and female athletes. They're not for that. They're not for you, ladies. They hate you, and all they care about is hating transgender people.
And the Department of Education is going to investigate North Virginia schools for letting trans students use the bathrooms that align with their gender identity.
And take it easy. He who saves this country does not violate any law.
The
Trump has posted.
Well, here's that's getting quoted a lot. Here's my favorite Trump quote.
Oh.
Hard to believe that a judge could say, we don't want you to do that.
Well, he's also said the only people who can say what the law is are me and Pam Bondi. That's it. We say what the law is. All right.
Well, that's what that quote is about. Now, what do you think about this economic blackout that they're trying to do as a protest on February 28th?
I don't know.
Don't buy anything except from small businesses.
There are a bunch of economic boycotts being set up. It's a way to vote in a way. If they actually start noticing blips in how many people shop this day and all this kind of stuff, they'll find out how many of their consumers care about these things.
Well, this is against big corporations that are caving in to Trump and Musk and going along with erasing all their DEI rules, their equity rules, their inclusion rules, their diversity rules. They're getting rid of all of that because Trump and Musk are telling them to. So consumers are supposed to have a countervailing message to these corporations.
Economic boycotts are very hard to organize, but people are hurting. People are miserable over this stuff. I mean, we are. I mean, it is awful to see so much of what we worked for so long just evaporating, and then we have to rebuild. So we have to take actions, however impotent they may seem in the beginning.
Probably pretty impotent to have the Pope contradicting J.D. Vance and saying that Catholic theology does not support migrant deportation. But he's trying.
And then, of course, they've ordered agencies. Trump has ordered agencies like HHS, the Food and Drug Administration, the CDC, to add disclaimers because they've been told they can't do it. So they have to now post disclaimers against gender ideology to the pages that have been restored. It's just an obsession of theirs, and they think they have a winning issue, folks.
Yeah, the disclaimer says, cites Trump's statement about there's only male and female, and that anyone who believes otherwise is disconnected from reality and is harming children and women.
Well, maybe they'll do like they did in the Soviet Union. Russia's our new closest ally under the Trump administration, and they'll start locking us up in psychiatric institutions because we state other views, which is what they
Russia.
did.
They did it in Utah. They've done it. They've done it all over this country.
I mean, I'm 71 years old. I have a friend who's my age. When he was 12, and he was a fellow activist. When he was 12 in Kings County Hospital in Brooklyn, he was lobotomized for being gay. Jimmy Flowers, very famous case. And, Jimmy's still around, but I mean, that's what they subjected you to back in the day. And who knows when that stuff may come back or be legitimized by, these monsters.
Should we?
Well, we had a big demonstration to demand that Governor Hochul, and you've been reading a lot about this, remove the corrupt Mayor Eric Adams from office. Big demonstration downtown. We had about 500 people. She's dithering about it. Adams is now, of course, doing the bidding of the Trump administration.
Explicitly, shamelessly.
And Trump's border czar, Tom Homan on Fox News, sitting right next to Eric Adams, say he'll be up his butt, a nice homophobic expression, if he breaks his vow to help ICE.
I have to say that I've been thrilled by the resignations of the Department of Justice prosecutors who refused to let Adams off the hook on
and
this.
The 4 deputy mayors of Adams who are resigning this week.
Well, I'm looking forward to, we are doing this on Wednesday, and this afternoon there's a court hearing.
Let me see if there's anything on that. Keep
okay,
talking.
You look it up. So it's both the Department of Justice is supposed to come into court and say why they want the charges against Adams dropped. And that Emile Bove himself will show up to support that. And then others will testify as to why Adams should still be prosecuted. I wonder who is going to prosecute him if all these prosecutors have resigned. If the judge says that he has to be prosecuted, right, and Emile Bove and the Department of Justice don't want him prosecuted, who's going to prosecute him?
I don't know, but I will give a note to our control room because we heard from our viewer, Jackie Rudin, that our slides and pictures are not showing up on the screen. Any word on that?
They can be added later on.
They can be added later. Okay.
Okay.
All right. In Utah, a bill that would ban pride flags in government buildings, including schools, but it would allow Nazi or Confederate flags to be flown, has cleared a hurdle in the legislature.
Yeah.
And they're saying, well, the Nazi and the Confederate flags, they're historic, like our flags.
Educational. We will have educational discussions.
But you can't have pride flags because LGBTQ people are the most disgusting people in the world and have to be banned.
And because they are defined as political, as opposed to the Nazi and Confederate flags. When did this become political? Why are we political? We're not political.
I've heard that all my life.
Yes.
But you're trying to just show pride in who you are.
Yeah.
And they're saying, well, you're engaging in politics.
Yeah.
Now.
It's crazy. We do not consider flying a pride flag as political.
All right. Democratic states are making it easier for trans people to legally change their name and sex. The Washington state Department of Health under Governor Bob Ferguson there is expediting sex change requests on birth certificates. Used to take up to 10 months, been cut down to 3. These are all encouraging things. This is what has to happen. And Governor Pritzker of Illinois signed a bill going into effect March 1st, makes name changes easier by repealing a requirement that the changes be published in a newspaper.
I also want to thank our viewer who saw the Rise and Resist demonstration at Tesla sales place last week and made his own sign for swastika cars and posted that on a wastebasket, a garbage can outside the Tesla showroom in the meatpacking district here. Love that name, the meatpacking district.
Tesla salespeople don't usually beg, but they are now. A friend of mine posted he had once put a deposit down on a Tesla, and then he lost the deposit, but he said, I just don't want to do it. This was before all this. Wait a minute. They call him. Would you be interested now? He said, not in this lifetime. So they're getting the message. I mean, their sales are in the toilet.
Well, did you see the video of Sheryl Crow sending her Tesla back, loaded it up on a car transporter, and with Andrea Bocelli singing, waved goodbye to her Tesla? That one went viral. All right.
So let's talk about the Kennedy Center.
Yep.
So without explanation, they canceled a performance of the Gay Men's Chorus on May 21st.
Well, wait a minute. This was Trump taking over the Kennedy Center.
Well, as we have said on the show.
Yeah, but let's set the context here. He fired all the board of directors, named his own board of directors, who are all the usual suspects in his little crowd.
Yeah.
Yes. And then the first, we had the people who canceled themselves. Issa Rae canceled her performance. Shonda Rhimes resigned as the treasurer. And then the Kennedy Center started doing what we expected under the Trump administration.
There were a bunch of things that were planned for World Pride end of May, beginning of June, which is going to be taking place in Washington. We don't know exactly how at this point, but the National Symphony Orchestra was supposed to be doing a concert, an LGBTQ Pride concert. That was just taken down. We have a picture of, it's based on a peacock among pigeons celebrating 50 years of Pride. So that's down. And then they canceled the Gay Men's Chorus. And our viewer, our sometime co-host, Chris Cooper here said, it's time to do a Marian Anderson. When she was banned from the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution Hall, she sang on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. That is not going to be allowed under this administration.
No, we will have to find...
just do it outside as a protest.
Well, the whole District of Columbia is federal ground, right? So they're going to have a hard time. And I have to move it somewhere else.
You know, we were doing a stand-up covering March on Washington, and we were standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. 7 cop cars descended on us. Lou Maletta, our boss, talked them out of it.
Wow.
They were ready to arrest us
in
all.
His usual garb?
Yes, which was spandex and a cowboy hat.
Wow. Yeah, well, the Gay Men's Chorus was also supposed to perform with the National Symphony Orchestra.
But there was a protest about this because, again, Trump is basing this on, drag queens. There was some drag brunch. One drag brunch at the place. And that's what they're always going to say. So here was the protest from Washington.
There's also massive pushback from DC's queer and trans community.
Yeah, DC News Now's Daniel Hamburg live at the Kennedy Center tonight where dozens of people protested. And Daniel, this is really a big demonstration.
Chris and Susan, there were a ton of people here tonight that marched from Washington Circle to here at the Kennedy Center right behind me. Their message, hands off of queer and trans artists. Of course, there were chants against the presidential takeover of the Kennedy Center, but really it was a celebration of queer joy. President Trump's takeover of the Kennedy Center has a lot of people in D.C. worried.
When we restrict the arts, we restrict the ability of people to fight back within the culture.
In the last week, President Trump said he didn't like what they were showing, especially drag shows, he says, specifically targeting youth.
We're going to get some great professionals. I'm going to be chairman of it, and we're going to make sure that it's good and it's not going to be woke.
These attacks on drag are thinly veiled attacks on trans people, and they want to classify trans people people living their authentic lives as them doing drag. So we really need to be here today, show up, and stand up for trans and drag rights.
Dozens of people chanted and danced in the street in front of the Kennedy Center. Organizers say to show they're not afraid to be queer, trans, and celebrate drag performers. Drag queen Tara Hoot even passing out flyers to become board chair.
I just think it's a right. If any old Yahoo could say they're board president, and he said he had a unanimous vote, which he didn't because there was some abstentions in there. Like, why not me? I'm the people's princess, darling. And the Kennedy Center is a place for everyone.
The concern for many goes beyond drag.
When despots try to take control, they go for the arts, they go for culture. And when they do that, they're attempting to sink their fascist teeth into the neck of democracy.
Of course, there's a lot of uncertainty what performances at the Kennedy Center will look like in the future here, but the organizers tonight tell me the drag performances throughout DC and the queer community will not stop at any time. We're live in Northwest. Daniel Hamburg, DC News Now.
And of course, it's not just the Kennedy Center. The Department of Defense.
I don't want to move on from that. I have a couple of things on that. So Carolyn Levitt, the White House press secretary, said about this, the Kennedy Center learned the hard way that if you go woke, you will go broke. And Steve Bannon wants the J6 choir of insurrectionists to open the new Trump Center. And Trump told the board, we're going to make it hot. And we made the presidency hot, so this should be easy. Now, Richard Grenell, the self-hating homosexual, has been appointed as the executive director, but maybe not for long. He's considering running for governor of California in 2026 if former President Kamala Harris enters the race.
Oh my God!
And then there's the JFK Presidential Library, Kennedy Center, JFK Presidential Library. They had to close because Musk laid off 5 of their workers. They had to close
temporarily.
Not the other presidential libraries, just Kennedy, who Trump, that ugly, is very jealous of.
Yeah. The Department of Defense runs schools all over the world on military bases for their enlistees' families. One of which was attended by Julianne Moore, who grew up in a military family and went to a school on one of these bases. Well, now it's all come home to roost. The Department of Defense is banning books from use in the schools at these military bases, and one of them is Julianne Moore's Freckle-Faced Strawberry.
What's that about?
It's about a kid who's different and learns to have self-esteem.
Yes. She says she was shocked, but also banned No Truth Without Ruth about the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
And they have banned the Department of Defense their online DEI educational courses. And the head of the Federal Communications Commission now, this guy Brendan Carr, wrote to Comcast and said, there's substantial evidence that NBC Universal is promoting invidious forms of DEI in a way that illegally discriminate. He's citing language on their website. I mean, this is pure fascism. Yes, it is.
Pure fascism.
Hitler would be envious.
Yes, but an appeals court in California did rule that a Kern County baker violated the rights of a gay couple when she refused on religious grounds to bake a cake, which is sell them a cake for their wedding. This was a pre-produced cake, although they say it's custom. It wasn't custom decorated or anything like that.
No, they had a version of the cake in the display case.
She says, we want one of those.
Yes, we want one of those. Oh, well, then we have to make it. That makes it a custom cake.
Yes.
It's a replica.
Yes.
But yes, the lesbian couple won.
Utah Governor Spencer Cox signed a law that would prohibit trans students at public colleges and universities from living in dorms that fit their gender identities.
Good news. DC Comics author Jenny Blake Isabella came out as trans at the age of 73. She invented the character Black Lightning, a black superhero, in 1979, and is going to continue to write some comics as her original name, Tony Isabella, because she established that name, and some as her new name, Jenny Blake Isabella. And she's going to create a new trans female superhero.
Great. A state court in New Jersey has told a school district to stop exposing trans kids to their parents in a ruling that has been hailed as a major victory there. They've had a state law about this for 10 years, and some of the local school districts were starting to violate it, so they took them to court.
We told you last week that we are going to have 2 LGBT candidates, it looks like, for the Senate seat in Michigan that's going to be open. Well, it looks like Angie Craig, out lesbian member of the House of Representatives, is going to run for the now opening Senate seat for Minnesota. Tina Smith.
What about Tim Walz?
He may do it too.
He might run too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Louisiana, a public service commissioner, black gay man Devontae Lewis, called the governor an a-hole. I won't say that whole word. For his gratuitous attack on Health and Human Services official Rachel Levine. Is it Levine or Levine?
Let's call the whole thing off.
Yeah. He may be fired for calling the governor an a-hole.
Right. All right. Let's go into some of these terrible stories. In upstate New York, in Canandaigua, a transgender man, Sam Nordquist, 24, was physically tortured for more than a month in a motel until he died. His alleged attackers ditching his corpse in an empty field to cover up their depraved crime. This has gotten a ton of attention around the country. The state police captain, this is one of the most horrific crimes I've ever investigated. Now, these are the 5 monsters who did this. Now they're trying to say, well,
who've been arrested and accused of doing it.
It's not a hate crime because some of them are LGBTQ themselves. Well,
it seems pretty hateful to attack him in this way.
I mean, and there's a picture of Sam graduating from high school. Loved by his family. It was his mother who was trying to check in on him that found out the rap sheets of these alleged perpetrators include things like sexual offenses with minors, etc.
He was from Minnesota, and he'd had an online correspondence with one of these people, and he thought that she was going to be his girlfriend, and so he went to Canandaigua to meet with her. And that's when he was taken by this crowd and beaten mercilessly and relentlessly and endlessly.
Tortured. It's just heinous. There will be a vigil of remembrance memorial for Sam and all transgender, non-conforming lives lost this year on, where is it? It's at the Church of the Village on Friday, February 21st, beginning at 6 o'clock. Church in the Village is right there on the corner of in New York. West 13th Street and 7th Avenue. It's sponsored by PFLAG and the New Pride Agenda. People are encouraged to bring flowers, and they're going to have fundraisers for the families of people that they're memorializing.
And another murder of a trans woman in Detroit, Tahiri Tokyo Broom, 29 years old, from Cleveland, had been hired for sex, presumably, and shot dead after an argument with the guy who hired her, Robert Ridges. He had called 33 sex workers that morning before finally finding her to come over. The theory is that he was looking for someone to kill, and she happened to be the one who suffered that.
And if you've been watching this show over the years, we probably told you about the murder of Lorena Extravaganza, a prominent trans performer who was killed in 2012. This became a cold case, but they finally arrested a man already in prison for killing his ex-girlfriend. nearly 13. So all this murder took place 13 years ago of Lorena Extravaganza. This alleged perpetrator's name is Henry Pacheco, long been suspected in the case.
Yep. And not a murder, but an assault. Matt Schlapp, who we've talked about before, who's been accused of, he's the head of CPAC, the
Conservative Political Action Committee.
Thank you. You see him there with his hero, Donald Trump. His wife works for Trump, or did, and he's been accused of sexually assaulting men before, including the guy who was working for Herschel Walker in Georgia on that campaign.
I mean, he's in a bar and he just keeps coming up to men that obviously it seems like he's attracted to, and just like keeps getting in their space and in their faces, and they want him out of there.
Yeah.
And they complain about him. And, when he found out somebody was going to write a story about it, he desperately tried to stop it, because this is obviously his MO.
Yeah. It's so outlandish that I actually wondered whether the story was real, but because the CPAC conference is about to start, so we'll
February
see.
19th.
Yeah.
That's today, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. Who knows anymore? I've lost track of everything. All right. Well, I haven't lost track of the fact that J.D. Vance went to Europe. Got very bad reviews.
It was insane. I mean, he was basically ending our support for Europe, embracing right-wing regimes, and he met with the head of the fascist party in Germany. He was basically telling Europe, you got to embrace these things. These are your your people. You can't and of course in Germany they do everything they can to stop these parties from advancing, because they don't want to go back to what happened during the 1930s and 40s.
Well, at least so far, the European leaders are appalled and are speaking out against this kind of stuff.
Olaf Scholz certainly let him have it. Now he's fading in the polls, and they're about to have an election too. But I think this is going to wake up people in Germany, in France, in Canada.
I hope it doesn't wake up Trump supporters in Germany, France, and Canada.
Well,
very scary. All right. In South Africa, there's an out gay imam,
Muhsin Hendricks,
assassinated at age 57. He was a well-known Muslim leader who had come out as gay.
The only openly gay imam in the world that we know about, I think.
Yeah. So we have a little clip of him.
Well, I came out of the closet when I was 29. So I was married for 6 years prior to that. And I think in that 6 years, there was a lot of reflection. Why am I living this double life? Well, the reason why I got married in the first place was I thought it will change me. And I thought that if I don't give it a try, I will always be plagued with the question, perhaps if I did get married, I would have changed. So now I can comfortably say to people that it doesn't work, it doesn't change. If you're gay, you have to somehow find acceptance for that. Only God can judge me. And I don't think God will judge me based on something that he has created inside of me. I think he perhaps will judge me on my choices that I make, but not on the way I'm being. So I'm completely comfortable with being gay and Muslim.
This is an extremely brave guy. Apparently was on his way to perform a same-sex wedding, which is completely legal in South Africa. But obviously, and we don't know who did the hit, but they shot into a car.
It seemed like a very deliberate assassination attempt. Yes. A car drove up beside him. Guy jumps out, dressed all in black in a face mask and everything, and with a gun, and just bang, and then got back in the car and drove away.
Hendricks insisted the need to be authentic was greater than the fear to die.
He had received a lot of death threats. He also founded a group, Al-Fitra, known as the Inner Circle for Gay Muslims, and was very active in helping support people.
So they were having sort of a pride march in Auckland, was it, in New Zealand?
Yeah, the Rainbow Parade.
Yes, and some Maoris from Man Up protested.
Well, they're from the Destiny Church, but Man Up, I think, is their program. Yeah.
They have T-shirts reading "Raising Fathers to Save Our Children." This is a Christian fundamentalist group, but they made quite a scene at the parade. The police at least protected the Pride March.
Well, I think that's a traditional Maori performance, but which gets a lot of attention. But I think they're actually a very small fringe group. And
let's hope so.
The parade proceeded after the cops gently pushed them out of the way. It wasn't, as you see, no one was getting violent. They just eventually
they were acting violent.
They were asked to leave, and they did, and the parade continued.
So, speaking, that's enough of that. Homophobic abuse continues in UK theaters. I don't experience this in New York, but apparently it's become a thing over there. At the Royal Court in Liverpool, they had a performance of something called The Peaceful Hour, a brand new show about true love, real life, cheesy love songs. And, audience member shouted homophobic comments towards the stage. I mean, people are just, their filters are down. And when they hear something gay, trans, whatever it is, they just start acting out.
Well, the question is, do they know that going in, or are they spontaneously provoked? I did hear from a viewer last week who wondered what I was getting at in talking about this happening at a theater in Manchester with the Dolly Parton play. And what happened was I realized as I was talking about it that I was about to make a sort of ignorant remark about Manchester. And the viewer kindly pointed out that, in fact, Manchester has a thriving gay community, a gay village, in fact.
But the actor in the Dolly Parton show, Stephen Webb, in Manchester, said, he said, the amount of audience members we've had to reject from our show due to homophobia is insane. So it's not like a one-off of some incident.
Well, that's why I think that they probably know it's a more deliberate protest of people going into the theater. But they had mentioned there was a gay character in the play. And as I read more about it, the gay character is the protagonist. He is a main character. So I see that they're getting very upset about that.
All right.
Well, there's a report from ILGA Europe, the International Lesbian and Gay Association. I think they've lengthened the actual words by now. But they put out a new report saying that homophobia is on the rise in Europe. And that's what we're seeing in these kinds of incidents.
Yes.
But a little good news from Edmonton, Canada, where an Edmonton police sergeant was demoted for his slurs against gay cops.
Okay. Shall we move on to AIDS news?
Yes.
Well, let's start with our friend Jerry Wells, 70 years old, who just passed away this week. We have a picture of her there with Larry Kramer back in the day. But talk about Jerry.
She was just a teddy bear. She was a wonderful person and with great radical views, involved in every protest that we did and ACT UP for years. She'd been sick lately and in, I think, a sort of assisted living kind of care for the last year or two. But she was just a joy to be around.
But, look, she was really involved as sort of she was a co-founder of ACT UP, of the Pink Panthers,
yes.
which was, when we were under attack with violence, they formed something called the Pink Panthers, which was a patrol to keep us safe in the village.
Yep.
And she also helped found Housing Works, which houses people with AIDS. So a tremendous social justice advocate. And her daughter said she was a mama bear. Our cozy East Village apartment became a refuge for teenagers who wanted to smoke a joint in a safe space and talk about their family and relationship dramas. So we're going to link to Jerry's ACT UP oral history in our show note. Go to gayusatv.org to sign up for that. And there will be a celebration of her life this Sunday, February 23rd at 3 o'clock at Henrietta Hudson. a lesbian bar at 438 Hudson. They're just north of Morton there. And it's going to be live streamed. I don't yet have the link to that.
Okay.
All right.
And also in AIDS news, an announcement from the New York City Department of Health that a new strain of Mpox has shown up in New York, Clad 1B, just one case from someone who contracted it in Africa.
Already been seen in California, Georgia, and New Hampshire.
Right.
But again, RFK Jr. is on the case at HHS. I'm sure they'll be all over this, trying to stop the spread and get everybody vaccinated against it. But that's the thing. You got to get vaccinated against Mpox. That's the deal to protect yourself. You need two doses. So do it now.
Isn't he in Texas arguing against the measles vaccine in the middle of a measles
as expected
epidemic?
Yeah, and as expected.
They all go to Congress for their hearings. They all lie through their teeth, and then they take office. And within 24
No. He never said he wasn't going to stop attacking vaccines. He said, "Senator, I'm going to follow the science." That's so you got to listen to that. That means that he looks at things differently. He didn't say he was going to keep vaccines up. This is putting us all in danger.
He thinks vaccines cause these diseases.
I mean, bird flu. You better vaccinate those chickens quick, and then us. But he's not going to be working on that. And bird flu is going to take us all.
I'm not buying eggs for a while.
Okay. And then there was the Capitol Police last week, right after we taped, arrested 5 people, AIDS activists who were,
Yeah, well, we want to get in our last little video.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
So in entertainment news, congratulations to our friend Chris Cooper, who sits in here sometimes. He has a new children's book, Urban Owls. Excellent. And all these award shows continue.
Yeah.
Whatever. But John Oliver on his show this Sunday showed a little clip, and I went and found it because I loved it so much. A guy named Todd did a new little rap song that he did a cappella, and then a guy named Vinny put music to it. Here it is.
We're in the middle of a hostile government takeover. I want to talk about it, but I've been late for work. And if you say, wait a minute, do we have to stop this? You have a bunch you did want that lady in office. Hostile government takeover. Hostile government. Now that we're a part of a Nigerian prince, damn surprise, it ended up being a white man. Oh, I just want to know what the hell do I do? I drink. And if you say, wait a minute, do we have to stop this? We have a bunch you did want that lady in the office. Hostile government. Take over. Hostile government.
We're going to lead a lot more songs for the revolution.
Well, I'm in favor of songs going viral like this and getting people excited and giving them attitude. Thank you to Todd for the song, and thank you to Vinny for adding the music.
Anne?
Yes?
We survived another week.
Sort
and
of.
So did you, if you're still watching.
Oh, my God. It's really... I want to tear my hair out. I do. It's very upsetting.
It is extremely upsetting, and we're good to be. But we do our best to take action if we can, and you should too.
Well, yes, and we certainly want you to do that.
What's that?
Because there's a lot of action to be taken, and we should not shy away from that. We should not give up. We should not put our heads in the sand. Get out in the streets. Do what you can. Talk to your neighbors, organize your friends, fight back, at least speak up. We have to speak up against this, but we'll continue speaking up next week. We will see you then.